Hell yeah.
Freedom the people of need, yeah, yeah. Freedom the people of want, freedom the people of need, yeah, yeah. Freedom the people of want, freedom the people of need, yeah, yeah. Freedom the people of want, freedom the people of need, yeah,
Yeah. Real man a road. Now bow wolf in a tree grand a road. Now bow down to no demon a road. UIC when you see man a road, me say yeah. Real man a road. Now bow wolf in a tree grand a road. Now bow down to no demon a road. UIC when you see man a road. Ready for broke every chain. Then when you free up the people, levitate. Jamaica member, you ever great. I feel burn up the fire upon every snake. Me give thanks in every way. God still a look down once see we safe. UIC run the road long time. GLP and PMP I sell we out. Still I do the test even though we know the end result. If them coulda kill with them catch we and hang we know. No force, no coercion, me freedom in a
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another edition of UIC Liberty TV. This is Joseph Patterson, President, joining you live from St. Elizabeth in Jamaica. Hello to my friends on Instagram. You're on a different screen, so you're going to notice I'm turning from screen to screen tonight as I talk to three different screens here. But please bear with me. It is my pleasure to be with you tonight on the eve of another year, 2021, just around the corner. It would have been so good. It would have been so good if we actually were looking forward to a really nice 2022, but unfortunately, it's already shaping up to be a bit problematic because of this so-called pandemic, the high crime rate we're seeing, and just a plethora of problems, including high prices. But we're very thankful to be alive today. So again, welcome to my friends on Instagram. This is my first time trying to do it this way, to have Instagram over here, our friends on Facebook and YouTube over here, and I think Twitter is over here. So I'm going to be juggling between different screens tonight. But welcome everyone, and thank you so much for joining us this evening to talk some more about the plans that the UIC has for Jamaica. So big shout out to Gloria Morris, Les Brown, JMH, Latoya Smythe, Lion Rule, and Sonia Mignot, coming in, I think, from maybe Facebook or YouTube. And over here, I am seeing Relentless Fearless. I'm seeing The Dark Something and Raven. Welcome to all of you on Instagram, and thank you for joining me tonight. Let me adjust this a little bit better so you can see maybe a full image of me. So yes, our topic for tonight is looking at the plans, the big plans that the UIC has for Jamaica. We're going to kind of dissect it a little bit and go into some of the specifics that you may or may not have heard before. And I'm going to be taking questions as well. So yeah, big up Khalifa, Kelly, good to see you. And Malcolm X as usual, good to see you on. And all of you who are joining us tonight from wherever you are. Could you just write in the comment section and say where you're viewing from? Let me know where you are. You know, I know that I think Khalifa, you are in the UK, if I'm not mistaken. Gloria, where are you chiming in from? Les Brown, where are you located? Let me know. Just type in the comment section and let me know where you are actually tuning in from. Before I go into much of what I want to talk about tonight, let me just say I hope you all had a very good Christmas break and that you had a chance to rest and connect with family and friends and just to recharge your batteries as you get ready for another year. You know, 2021 just zoomed by so fast. It was incredibly fast. And you just feel like you didn't get to, to do all that you wanted to do. I see somebody here in Nunavut, Canada. Interesting way doing up this, um, Khalifa, Nunavut, Canada. I've actually worked in Nunavut, Canada. While I was director of finance, I spent some time up here helping to sort out their financial system. West Brown is Toronto, Ontario, Canada. I see Lion, you're in Las Vegas, Nevada. Cool. And Gloria is in Oklahoma, USA. Sean is in Boston. Excellent. So those are all places that I have been at one point or another. Good night, Charmaine King. Good to have you on. You're tuning in from Rose Hall, Linstead. Big up everybody in the Linstead. Chase Neal is here. Chase is our education shadow minister. Good to have you on, Chase, in St. Mary. And what else we have here? Another person in Boston. How are we doing over here on, oh yeah, Spanish Town. I see Spanish Town on Instagram here. And who else? Which other Miami as well, chiming in. Excellent. Good to see you all. Good to have you on. I want you to hit me with some tough questions tonight here. So whatever is on your mind, I want to make sure I spend some time and talk about it tonight. Hope I have enough time. I'm going to make this a 1 hour presentation, maybe a little longer, if depending on how hot your questions are, and if you don't find what I have to say too boring. Khalifa says he's disillusioned by both parties. We all are, Khalifa. We all are. I can't believe anybody at all, who has been a Jamaican for more than a few years, who would not be disillusioned with the two parties. Um, DL says on your website, I think you'd be great if you can put your manifesto in audio files. A very good idea. Very good idea. We will do that for sure. Um, for sure. For sure. Definitely. For sure. That's a very good suggestion. We will look at doing that. For sure. And over here on Instagram, Lee Speng, glad to have you on. Um, I mean, you have some really creative names over here. Eh? I can't even pronounce some of them, but Jaren Sure and Evo Isley. My gosh, man, you guys have some very complicated names on Instagram. I'm so struggling to read out some of the names, but thank you all for being with us this evening, and forgive me for having to look from screen to screen. It's a bit of a challenge for you. Um, what else do we have here? You said you have been here in Vegas. Mind yourself, Mr. Patterson. Yes, Lion Rule. Yes, for sure. I will mind myself. I, I'm not a gambler, so um, you know, I wasn't gambling. I can assure you of that. Yeah. All right. So, where do we begin tonight? I mean, there are so many things to talk about. You would have seen the stuff I sent out earlier today as to what we're going to talk about. We have issues such as the property tax. The UIC is bold. We are going to get rid of the property tax. And the question some of people will have is, if you get rid of the property tax, um, how are you going to pay for the things that government needs to cover? And so I want to answer that question for you tonight. You also want to know about our idea of getting rid of the minimum wage. So that's another thing. We want to get rid of Jamaicans should be focused on getting a maximum wage, not a minimum wage. We're going to talk about that as well. I want you to think through that. We're going to have a discussion on it where I'm going to challenge your thinking a little bit, and you're going to make sure you pep them with questions to make sure you fully understand. Because the UIC is about to change Jamaica in some dramatic ways that's going to push our prosperity through the roof, that's going to give us freedom like we've never seen it before, while at the same time creating a very responsible society, a very safe, clean, and orderly society. So we'll talk about that. Do you have a parish association? If yes, can you put me in touch with the one in Portland? Very good, Khalifa. Do me a favor, and I'm going to give you a number for you to this number here on screen, 87629308112. Just send your request to that number. Say you want the parish manager for Portland, or if you want to know who the candidate is in your specific division or district, you just send a message to that number and they'll tell you who the person is and put you in touch with them. We want every Jamaican to get involved in building Jamaica. Get involved in the UIC. Find out who your parish manager is. Find out who your uh, division council candidate is. Find out who your MP candidate is. You can find it on our website. We're updating every day. But you can also use this number on the screen, 876-293-0812, and let them tell you who the person is. Um, Somebody says you have to educate the people or nothing will change. Absolutely, Omar. And if you notice, Omari, the UIC is the education party. We break things down for the citizens to make sure everybody can understand. Somebody's asking, I think Venit is asking, who are our backers? Now that is a very good question. Who are the backers of the UIC? Can anybody tell me who the backers of the UIC are? The UIC is backed by you. You are the backers of the UIC. We have no big money sponsor. Yeah, we have no big money sponsor sponsoring the UIC. The UIC is fully backed by the people of Jamaica, the ordinary people. Yes, Natalie, darling. The UIC is backed by the people. Good evening, Joan Levine. Welcome. So the UIC is not backed. There's no rich, big company backing the UIC. You all know that the other two parties, for their full 77 years, over 77 years that they have been running this country, they are backed by big business. So they get millions and billions from the private sector organization of Jamaica through their richest members. And because they are funded by these billionaires and big businesses, the two parties, while they tell you how much they love the poor, they actually work for the rich. So all their policies, all their manifestos, all of these fanciful statements that they make about how they're going to help the poor and how they love the poor and how they care about the poor, all of it is a fake, right? None of it is true. And that is why Jamaica remains as poor as it is today. Yeah, Jamaica remains as poor as it is today because these two major parties have been lying to you for over 77 years. They've been tricking us, tricking us, tricking us. I tell you something, Jamaica is in fact a very rich country, but we have a system that is designed to keep the majority poor. That's a fact. Jamaica is a rich country, a very, 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 very rich country. We have everything we need in this country to be a very prosperous country where people can live the highest standard of living. We have far more resources than Singapore, far, far more resources than Singapore. We have more land mass than Singapore. Singapore has to import water. Water, Singapore has to import. We have everything a country needs to be super successful. But those that have led us for the last 77 years, the system that they have, the system that was designed by our colonial masters, is used to keep us poor. Our leaders are actually misleaders who, instead of working for us, have been working for our enemies all this time. Some may not have known it. Some may be innocent, ignorant, which is sad because you would think that if you're going to take up the position of leading a country, um, of being a part of the government of a country, of holding a ministerial portfolio. You would educate yourself so you understand what's going on. Unfortunately, our leaders, knowingly or unknowingly, have misled the Jamaican people and knowingly or unknowingly worked for the enemies of our people instead of for the interest of the Jamaican people. They told us that out of many we are one people, and that was a bold-faced lie. They knew it was a lie because they themselves instituted all kinds of segregation, division, all kinds of classism, all kinds of efforts of marginalizing segments of the country. They have manipulated people, placed them into squatter communities, placed them into ghettos, placed them into garrisons. They have not treated the Jamaican people as one. They have maintained the uptown versus the downtown classification, and they have had their rich elite societies while manipulating and deceiving the vast majority of people that they kept as vote providers while destroying them with bad education, bad housing projects, bad policies, bad healthcare system, and so on. So these people are knowingly or unknowingly. I mean, I'm going to assume that some of them didn't realize what they were doing. Let me give them the benefit of the doubt of that. But if you look at what they actually did, whether they had good intentions or not is not the question here. What they actually did, I don't look at intention. I look at impact. What was the impact of their policies? What did that do to our people? And you can see the evidence is clear. Since the first election in 1944, over 77 years ago, they have been misleading the nation. They used tribal division. They used political distraction. They used tribal division. They used political distraction to orchestrate our wealth extraction. They used tribal division. They used political distraction to orchestrate our wealth extraction. And so they have helped our enemies to extract our wealth from us. The wealth is there. We have the wealth. Jamaica has the wealth. We have an abundance of wealth in this country. That is why every year you see the banking sector, the insurance sector, and all of them making billions of dollars. So there's no wealth problem in Jamaica. We don't have a lack of resources here. All we lack is a system of governance that is designed to work for the people of Jamaica. That's all we lack. A system of governance that is designed to work for the people of Jamaica. So what they have done is they have designed a system to oppress the people, keep us down, and run out the good ones. So the best and brightest, they push them out of the country so they have to go work for other countries, like myself. Many people like myself went abroad and worked and helped to build up Canada and England and the USA and other countries because we want a better standard of living. And they kept us poor and marginalized here. So let us be clear. Our leaders have been misleaders. And since 1944 until now, when they started getting the opportunity to take over the country and to be more involved in the running of the country from the colonial masters, they have used those 77 years to divide us, bitterly divide us so that we hate each other. They have used that, they have used our politics to distract us and in the process extract our wealth from us. So a few of them become very, very rich. You must also be aware that they ganged up on Marcus Garvey. Those the two parties that we learned to kill each other for, they ganged up and got rid of Marcus Garvey and then turned around and made him an obscure hero of no effect. What's the point of having Garvey as a national hero if our children don't really know what he stood for, what he did, what they did to him, what he was trying to do for the black race, how effective and magnificent he was in the US, how he did in the US what he could have done in Jamaica if these two parties didn't stop him, and how Jamaica could have been the full embodiment of Garveyism and could have transformed the Jamaican people and the Jamaican country and all of Africa into a massive industrial state that fully reflects the genius of the black man. Instead, they got rid of Marcus Garvey, forced him to have to go to a country where he's not a citizen, and then they, of course, did in him. Yeah, it's time for us to come full circle and understand that these two parties and what they have done do not mean us any good. No matter what the good things they may say, yes, they may have had certain good policies or good sounding policies from time to time, but look at the implementation of those policies. Was the NHT a good idea? Yes, the NHT was a good idea. Has it served the purpose? No, it hasn't served the purpose. Instead, what they've done with the NHT is to use it as a political football to get votes, while at the same time finding a way to overtax the Jamaican people by stealing their money from them and putting that money into areas that it was not intended. And in the end, you have a fund, NHT, a massive fund with lots and lots of money that was taken from poor people, which only helped a few persons who could qualify and then provide extra funding for the government to spend on corruption and waste. That's what they have done, and we need to be honest about these things. We need to be very honest about what they've done to us, and stop being what you call it now. Stop having any soft spot in your heart for any of those parties. Yeah, stop it. Stop having a soft spot about I am a born PNP or I'm a born GLP. You're a born Jamaican. That's what you are. A born Jamaican. You're not a born PNP. You're not a born JLP. You are a born Jamaican, and it's time for you to focus on defending and protecting and getting the best out of Jamaica. And stop being a born PNP or born JLP. You're a born Jamaican. So stop it now. I'm asking you, I'm begging you, I'm pleading with you. Let us stop it now. Let us cut the umbilical cord from these two parties and re-engage with our roots. The roots of Marcus Garvey, the roots of Nanny, the roots of Paul Bogle, the roots of Sam Sharp, the roots of George William Gordon, not the roots of two parties that have spent the last 77 years destroying us as a people. They didn't only gang up on Marcus Garvey, they also ganged upon our Rasta brothers and sisters. They ganged upon them, they beat them, they massacred them, and then afterward they turn around and tell us that Bob Marley is our great icon, and they embrace Bob Marley. How can you embrace Bob Marley when Bob Marley is a Rasta and you massacred and beat Rastafarians? These two parties, just like how they gang up on Marcus Garvey, the first black man in this country to form a political party to fight against colonialism, to fight against imperialism, they ganged up on Marcus Garvey and pushed him out of Jamaica, and they ganged up on the Rastafarian brothers and sisters and trampled them and suffocated them. This is a fact. I'm not making this up. I'm not making this up. And so we have to, if somebody's on here saying that I'm going in the wrong direction, you cannot go in the right direction if you don't know your path. If you don't know and understand your history, you cannot go in the right direction. You will make the same mistakes all over again. And so it's very important for us to know what happened. I know some of us may feel very uncomfortable because you don't want me to talk about what your party did. You don't want to remember. You don't want to think about what your favorite party did or what your favorite party leader was a part of. Well, I must tell you that I'm not going to stop. I'm very committed to making sure the Jamaican people understand where we're coming from so we can make sure we don't return there. We want to stop what's going on or want to move forward with a proper understanding of what's going on. So we continue. Our leaders followed the orders of their colonial masters and they made ganja illegal. When they made ganja illegal, that destroyed many of our young men. Yes, because you've criminalized them. You give them a criminal record. They've beaten up many of our young men, thrown many of our young men in jail because of a plant that God gave us. Ganja is a plant. It comes from God. It is nature. It is natural. And no government should ever have made any plant illegal in this country. And they did that. They didn't do it because they wanted to. They did it because their colonial masters told them to. And much of the laws we have in Jamaica today, the vast majority of the laws we have, are laws which are written and commanded by the colonial masters. They were not laws that were carefully designed to meet the needs of the Jamaican people. They're there to meet the needs of our foreign masters, working through the puppets we have as our politicians. Yes. And so our politicians have been for years feeding us a lot of fake things. Right? So, for example, in 1838, when they gave us so-called freedom, when they said slavery is abolished, that was a lie. Slavery wasn't abolished because simply said that the trading will take a different form. Slavery continues to this very day, but in different forms. We talk about human trafficking now. It was a fake freedom back then because what it meant was that you were free, but you had to work for those who owned the capital and those who were educated. Yeah. And then, of course, in 1944, when they gave us so-called, they call this thing self-government. Again, that was fake. It wasn't self-government. It was um, designed to divide us into two tribes to make sure we fight each other, no longer the colonial masters. And then again, in 1962, they came and tell us that we have independence, which was not independence because we had the Queen of England as head of state and a system of governance designed by our colonial masters to ensure that we would undermine ourselves, would become very corrupt, and would not build a strong, united nation. And so that was a fake independence, as you can see. We became highly indebted, and before long, we were at the mercy of our colonial masters all over again. And so, having looked at that, the the next thing is that this fake independence evolved to this point, um, and we now have a colonial constitution, and that constitution was used to deny the people their land. We have such thing as crown land, and as a result of that, many Jamaicans remain landless to this day, are not property owners. And you'll see in the UIC's manifesto that we're very big on making all Jamaicans property owners. We're very big on getting rid of this concept of crown land. And we're very big on getting rid of this idea of property taxes. Yeah. And so, having looked at all of that, and we've seen how they have divided us into two tribes and led us to kill each other for scarce benefits and spoil. Now they're trying, the latest move. The latest move, they're now trying to do the ultimate. Yeah. The ultimate is that they're trying now to sell our bodies. Yeah. They want to surrender our bodies to the colonial masters by way of this uh, injection stuff that they have here. And so we have to make sure that we do not allow them to sell our bodies by way of um, forcing us, mandating us, directly or indirectly, to take a substance into our bodies that we don't want to take into our bodies. So the UIC has led this march for my body, my choice, because we wanted to make it people to know and understand that the government doesn't own you. You own you. You are the owner of you. The government does not own you. You own your body, and you must be the one to decide what goes into it. And your children are your children. Your children do not belong to the government. And so the government should not be allowed to decide what goes into your body or what goes into your children's body. Yes. So this is the last straw. So we're not going to comply with the latest set of demands that the government has. We want to ensure that Jamaicans know that their freedom of speech, their freedom of movement, their freedom of choice is fully protected by law, at least it should be. And the UIC is that one political movement that is going to ensure that their rights are fully and unequivocally protected. So let's talk about the UIC solutions now. We have talked a lot about the past because if you don't understand the past, you cannot understand uh, the future. Yeah. So let's talk about UIC solution. Many of you, if you look on the website, you'll see they have a couple of documents. One of them is the UIC manifesto here, a pretty detailed document which walks you through what our plans are, what our philosophies are, what we think about the various things. There's also one that deals with the local government plan, what we're going to do when it comes on to local government. Let me just take out a few of them and share with you at a top level. Yeah, so at the top level, a few of the solutions that we have. One of them, which means a lot to me personally, is the issue of property tax. So the UIC is going to do away with property tax, and the idea behind that is very simple. You think about it. When you buy a product, let's say a shoes or a car or um, a meal, whatever it is, you don't buy that product and pay taxes in perpetuity. In other words, you don't pay taxes forever on a product. And so when you buy land, when you buy your home, you should own that property. Now, if you have to pay a tax on that property every single year for the rest of so long as you supposedly own that property, then you don't really own the property. What you're paying is a rent. And so that is one of the fake things that that has been introduced by our colonial masters as a trick into our governance model that we're going to get rid of. Yeah. And so we're going to make sure that the Jamaican people no longer pay property tax on their homes, on their property that they have. It should be yours free and clear. We also want to do away with the idea of the minimum wage, which is a trick. It is a trick and it's a trap. And what it has done, the minimum wage, it has trapped the Jamaican people, a large number of Jamaicans, um, into a mindset of looking to government to set for them an appropriate wage for their income, as opposed to them understanding the need to accomplish three things in their own life, understanding for themselves. This is it. You need to know without reservation that your economic value as a person, and listen to this carefully, it's very important. Your economic value as a person is determined by three things. There are three very important things that determine your economic value as a person. Yeah. Number one is the demand for what you do. What kind of demand is out there for what you do as a person, right? Number two, how well you do what you do. And number three, how difficult it is to replace. Yeah. So instead of focusing on earning a minimum wage, and I notice they've also been banting around the idea of a living wage. You don't want a living wage, you don't want a minimum wage. What you want is to understand economics and understand how to provide the highest possible value to society so that society can in return give you the highest possible return or value for the service you provide. So if you are a young boy or girl living with your parents and having no real work experience, you should know that when you enter the world of work at that young age, you are going to negotiate at a level that is going to give you an income commensurate with the quality of what you can provide at that time and space of your life. And your goal is to progress up the ladder, to become better and better at what you do. Your goal is to understand the market in which you're living and figuring out how you can add value in that market. Your goal must be to continuously improve your skills and your competencies to make sure that as you get to 25, 35, 45, 55, 65, you would have continuously improved your capacity to add value to the lives of others. And in return, they will add value to your life. So you want to understand economics, you want to understand contracts, you want to understand negotiations, you want to understand markets, you want to understand products, you want to understand human behavior. And so what you want is a government and an education system that empowers you to understand and to make effective decisions from day to day that is going to propel you up the ladder of life as opposed to diminishing your view of yourself in looking forward to and expecting some authoritarian body to set a price for your wage as opposed to you setting the price for your own wage. Yeah, very important. And so we're going to shift the dialogue, we're going to shift the thinking away from minimum wage to maximizing your earning potential. We want to be like Singapore. I love calling on them because they've done such an amazing job. In Singapore today, they have to be importing low skilled workers because they have so entrenched in the minds of their citizens the idea of a meritocracy so that their people are performing at such a high level that nobody there gets any minimum wage. In fact, Singapore does not have a minimum. And what they have instead is a highly educated, very intelligent, um, knowledge-based uh, workforce, if you will, where their people have understood everything I just spoke about. And because of that, they're high level producers, high level performers, and that country attracts a tremendous amount of investment from around the world as major companies set up establishment in Singapore. And as a result, their people are not available for low skilled work, and as a result, they have to be importing low skilled labor. Let me take some questions and comments as we go along. So Sean Paul says, we want to a raise of value. Yes, Jamaica is really not a poor country. Correct, Marilyn. Um, Craig McKenzie says, oh, Singapore are it's going so fast now. Eh? It might seem like a small issue, but all our problems, especially violence, begin in the home. Yes, I don't agree with that. The violence problems doesn't begin in the home. Um, where we have to understand that Jamaica, any society, is shaped by um, some key factors. Factor number one, it's shaped by its system of governance, right? So your system of governance shapes your culture. And the longer that system stays in place, then that's where you end up with the culture that you have. So if you think about it, in Jamaica, what happens to in a typical home? First of all, every mother and father, whether they're together or not, was educated by the system that existed, right? They didn't just educate themselves, they were educated by the system. So the parents that you have in the home are the product of the education system that you have. The behavior of these parents are driven by the society that you have created, and that society is again shaped by the governance model. The governance model impacts your economic model, which impacts how people interact and relate to each other. Um, Government policy influences behavior. It creates incentives and disincentives in our society. And as those incentives and disincentives interact in terms of human behavior, we end up with the norms that you have in the society, which of course becomes the norms in the homes, which then becomes the norms you feel in terms of crime, in terms of socialization, in terms of economic output, in terms of overall prosperity, in terms of upward mobility or the lack thereof. So we can't just simply say the home. We have to understand the dynamics of the different elements that are impacting the creation of what we can call the home. Okay? Question here from Craig: do you think the minimum wage issue will go over well to the wider society? Yes, it will. The wider society is now tired of being tricked. They want straightforward leadership that can clarify matters for them, that can explain what is going on, and help them to realize, what needs to be done. Jamaica lacks leadership. What we have now are politicians who just say whatever they think people want to hear in order to win power, and then use the 5 years to extract the wealth of the people and then hope to trick them again in the next election. It's time for us to have real leadership. It's time for us to have leaders who can, um, you know, push us forward and pull us forward, and who can contextualize things for us and help us to understand. Where do you money government normally receives through the property tax? Very good question, Kelly. Uh, so the government right now is overtaxing the nation. So it's taking up about 45% of our GDP. It's sucking too much money out of the economy, out of the productive economy. So we don't need the property tax. What we need and what we do have is a taxation system that the UIC proposes. Our taxation system is based on replacing all taxes with just two taxes. So we're going to get rid of all the taxes that we have in Jamaica and simplify the tax system so even a child can comply with the tax requirement. And we're going to have two taxes, two taxes. We're going to have a 10% flat income tax on income from all sources. So no matter where you get your money from, you'll be taxed 10% on that money. Yeah. And that 10% tax is all we need to provide all the public goods and services that's needed to run a country, any country, including Jamaica. You might be alarmed to know that there's a point where uh, in the US, when they were at their richest level and growing, taxes was about 6% total overall. So we're going to have a 10% tax overall that every Jamaican is going to pay. So nobody will be exempted from tax. Whether you're rich or you're poor or middle class, it doesn't matter. Everybody will pay 10% of their income from all sources. And that will be the extent of the government's regular operating and capital budget for to create a safe, clean, and orderly society. Then we have another tax now, which is the GCT, which is currently at 15%. We're going to reduce the GCT from 15% to 10%, but we're going to now dedicate that tax entirely to poverty alleviation. This means we're going to ensure that every child has the nutrition, the education, the healthcare, and the housing that they need to succeed. We're going to use this 10% tax to ensure that we have a solid work fair program that will help every adult to be gainfully employed. We're going to have from that 10% GCT a youth employment solution program that will ensure that by the time a child leaves high school, they are on track to be a successful, productive employee or entrepreneur. Whether they go on to university straight, or they go into a trades program, or they go into an apprenticeship program. But we're going to make sure that not one single child is left behind, and that the gangs have absolutely no unattached youth that they can draw on to include in their gang. We're going to have a foolproof process that's very tight, that's completely tracked from birth straight through to ensure that every single child is being monitored for optimal health and nutrition, to be protected from pedophiles and other forms of abusers, and to ensure that they get the kind of education that's best suited for them based on their temperament, based on their interest, and so on. We're going to divorce the the um the parent's economic means from the child's ability to succeed. And this is going to go all the way through to the PhD level. This is very important. So we're going to make sure that our brightest children, whoever they are, and they're going to self-select. We're not going to select them. They're going to self-select. So based on a meritocratic process, those children who are doing very well, we're going to make sure that their parents' economic means doesn't stop them. So if you're doing very well, they continue to get the full support they need all the way through to the PhD level if they get to that level. So if a child is only able to get to a trade school level and do very well, that's fine. The system will be there to help them to get there. If they get to a college level, that's fine. If they get to a full undergraduate degree level, that's fine. If they get to a master's degree level, that's fine, or a PhD. We're going to be helping every child to achieve their maximum potential. This is key. Why are we doing this? It is very clear that you need some key things for a country to do very well. And I can mention the four of them another day. But one particular one that we need to really zero in on, and it is building our human capital. If we don't build our human capital, we are not going to have the kind of country that we need. So we have to zero in on ensuring every child gets the nutrition, education, and healthcare that they need to succeed. Yeah. So, on, included in this whole solution is the idea of getting our people to decent housing. You know, we're talking about children here, but children don't exist without their parents. So we need to help the parents to get into decent quality housing. And so, as part of our 10% plan, uh, where we're dedicating the GCT, so we're not going to play around with this anymore. We're going to have a very focused program of alleviating poverty. So, we're going to make sure that we really build up our housing stock in a very strategic way that gets us to a 95, 98% home ownership rate, and have these homes, the quality homes, decent homes for our children so that they are in an environment where they can learn and grow. Yeah? Let me take some more question here. My suggestion as well, said Ms. Fletcher, would be for people from various communities who are doing well in Jamaica or overseas to return to the community and adopt one or two children. Okay, thank you for that. Uh, um, somebody was here saying I was just watching the news a while ago, and they're saying that went too far. Donnery King, good night, Mr. Patterson. What's your plan the UIC has for physical challenge um, children? So, Donnery, yes, in our education plan, uh, every child. So that means if the child is physically or mentally challenged, uh, the system must be designed to assist them, of course, within the constraints of our budget. Okay. All right, good. How are we doing on Instagram here? You need people on your, not, not because you're not in agreement, needs to plan over. Okay, so there's a dialogue going on here on Instagram where people are discussing the points. That's very good. I love that. Um, let me see if I can take another question up here. Which country has a similar tax model? So Maniga is asking which country has a similar tax model. Um, there are various models around the world. So there's no one country with any one, and many countries switch between models. We based our model on what is needed for Jamaica. So we have two problems in Jamaica where taxes are concerned. One is the overtaxation of the people, and the other one is the misallocation of taxes. So our system addresses both. So one, we're going to reduce the taxes so we stop overtaxing the people and and have that tax revenue move back into the productive sector, which is very important. You know, let's say we're taking $1,000 out of the regular economy right now and sucking it into government. It goes into government and it pays for waste and corruption. Which that's it. That money dies. But if you have that money being a part of the productive sector, paying for productivity, which then pays for more productivity, you have the multiplier effect, and as a result, it continues to build the economy. So we are shifting. So the government won't be losing anything really, because what we're doing in the first instance is shifting the tax revenues away from waste and corruption and into the hands and pockets of the hardworking Jamaican who is going to make optimal decisions in most cases for himself because that's his own money. Nobody spends your money as well as you do in most cases, right? So we're going to shift that money back to the constructive economy, and that's going to create a multiplier effect because you're now going to have new tax revenues being generated from more job creation, more productivity, more exports. And so it's going to be a feedback loop system that feeds on itself in a positive way, creating um, what I like to call the multiplier effect. Um, Someone else says the 10% belongs to the priest. Okay. Um, and Tiana says more people working. Exactly. That's very important. Our approach puts more people to work and builds the overall economy as opposed to having the money being sucked into government uh, and so on. It's also going to bring down the cost of goods and services because you're now going to have more money spent on productive items instead. Craig is saying under a UIC model, will there be a need to file taxes yearly? Yes, there will be. Yeah, on the UIC system, every Jamaican will now have to file an annual tax return. It will be a very simple one, however. Um, Very, very easy to do, much easier than the one you're doing over there in Canada. Great. What kind of plan do you have for learning a trade? Says Patricia Richards. So our plan in terms of uh, trade, as I was saying earlier on, our new school system, our school model, our education model will be focused on helping each child achieve their full potential in whatever area. So, be it the trades or a profession or academia or something like that, every child will receive the assistance that they need to get there. Um, I see somebody saying one aspect of LEAP, our education program, is a digital library. Um, so, thank you for sharing that. Very good. Yeah, very good. Uh, And somebody says here, reducing taxes definitely works if we increase efficiency, reduce corruption, especially government. Yeah, um, one of the things we have to do is put government on a diet. Eh? If you don't have a cap on taxes, government will just continue to expand. And we've seen that in Jamaica. They expand so far and then collapse, and then they have to do all kind of draconian belt tightening afterwards to then bring us back. You might recall Jamaica went from, just ballooning in debt to we got to over 150% of GDP, heading on to 200% of GDP. And then the government had to go back to the IMF, and then they had to do a lot of belt tightening, and the people just had to suffer. Why did we have to suffer like that? Because our politicians just went wild and just borrowed like crazy and spent wastefully, and then we the people have to suffer and 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 pay this money back and suffer, and then end up with a lot of unintended consequences later on. So why not reverse that? Do it a little differently. So what we do is let's prevent that from happening by putting a hard cap on taxes. So the UIC has put a hard cap on taxes, and it's 10% cap. The government cannot, by law, so we're going to put this in the new constitution of the UIC, right? The new Jamaica constitution. The government cannot tax the citizens more than 10% of their income, and they cannot increase the sales tax to more than 10%. And then we specify what each of those taxes are allowed to do. So we box the government in so that just like you and me, I mean, we don't get to just increase our revenue. We don't get to just live a carefree life and then we just go and increase our pay. So the government should not be able to just increase its taxes by charging us more things. And so what they've done throughout the years is to introduce a number of taxes, many taxes. You know, on your paycheck you have education tax, you have heart tax, you have NIS, you have NHT, you have PAYE, you have property tax, you have um, you know gasoline tax, you have all kinds of taxes. The UIC is saying enough of that. Let's stop that. We're going to have one standard income tax that everybody pays and one sales tax. And we're going to define the role of those taxes and how they're to be used and codify that in law and then keep the government on a short leash and limit their ability to inflict damage and pain on our economy and on the people. Um, so uh, Taylor is saying, what if you need to remove money from the economy to prevent inflation? Wow, that's an interesting question, Taylor. All right. So that question implies that you believe that it is the role of government to mess with our money supply and to manipulate us with inflation targets and so on. The UIC does not subscribe to that. The UIC does not subscribe to government manipulating our economy and um, social engineering and um, doing all manner of things to say that they think they know what's best for us. So the UIC is opposed to inflation target economics. We believe in zero inflation, zero artificial inflation. There are two types of inflation. There is natural inflation and there is artificial inflation. What you're talking about is the artificial one, where the government plays with our money supply and plays with our economy and decide when they want to inject inflation or they want to pull back inflation, as the case may be. We are categorically opposed to that. So we don't want government setting interest rates. We don't want government manipulating money supply. We don't want government setting inflation targets for the citizens. Um, in terms of natural inflation, that is natural in terms of the price of an item moving to reflect what's happening in the market. So that's fine. But for artificial inflation, we don't want that. What we want is to make sure that the nation's money supply is tied to the productivity of the people. And so you have a balance of the money supply in tandem with the productive efforts of the people so that we maintain the purchasing power of the dollar at a consistent pace. So what you're going to have happening is that um, a young professionals who begin their work life at say 25 and then they retire 40 years later at say 65 and they saved a portion of their paycheck from 25 to 65, the value of the dollar that they save each year is preserved into their seniors' years so that they have not lost purchasing power because of the kind of economics that is now being practiced, which is fraudulent, by the way. It's a fraudulent system that is used to hurt you because the current monetary system that the government has bought into um, um, is a system that consistently uh, takes away your purchasing power over time and forces you to have to engage in all manner of reckless investing and high risk investing to try to compensate for it. The UIC says no, we're going to get rid of that so that you can simply save confidently towards your retirement without having to get into any outlandish or high risk stake investment to try to compensate for artificial inflation created by a fraudulent monetary system. The UIC will take Jamaica out of that fraudulent monetary system and return the economy to you, the people, and preserve the value of the Jamaican dollar as we should. Yeah. All right. Next question. Somebody says that's the role of central banks. So in a situation where there's inflation, we're just gonna leave it be. So Taylor, again, what you're explaining is you have bought into the idea of central banking. The UIC does not buy into the idea of central banking. We're opposed to central banking. Um, uh, the problem you're talking about in terms of inflation is created by the central banking model. So they create the problem and then tell you that you're going to solve the problem. What we're going to do is to do away with the central banking model. So we will not have that problem and therefore will not have to try to do what you're prescribing as the solution to that problem. We will not have artificial inflation and therefore will not have a central bank trying to correct the artificial inflation that it previously created. It is wrong, it is immoral, and it has destroyed many persons and pushed seniors into living in poverty. I can tell you that many senior citizens today are living in poverty because of that fraudulent monetary system that we need to get rid of. Yeah. Okay, great. So let's see if we have any more questions here. Crime is the number one problem in Jamaica, says um, 3S Chicken. No, crime is not the number one problem in Jamaica. Bad governance is the number one problem. Crime is the symptom of that number one problem. Crime is a symptom of bad governance. High unemployment is a symptom of bad governance. A devalued currency is a symptom of bad governance. Indiscipline and disorder in society is a symptom of bad governance. So if we fix the bad governance problem, we end up fixing many of the other problems as well. All right. So um, Pablo is writing. He says inflation can only be controlled by increasing domestic production and consumption. We'll be slaves to foreign derived inflation unless and until we protect the local economy. All right, Pablo, let me try to see if I can respond to that comment with a little bit of info. Just so you know, this is my favorite topic. Talking economics is my favorite topic as a CPA. So, hmm, so inflation, again, remember, when you're talking about inflation, you want to make sure that you understand what is it you're talking about, right? Inflation is where the value of your currency or money depreciates, right? We normally see inflation in terms of prices. So as consumers, we experience inflation in terms of higher prices, which is really not so much higher prices, but rather a decrease in the value of our purchasing power, the value of our dollar, right? Um, so this gentleman was saying that the solution to that is production. No, the solution is not production per se. The solution is not to have artificial inflation, right? So if we have artificial inflation, let's get rid of artificial inflation. And what is artificial inflation? Artificial inflation is when government introduces a supply of cash into the economy that is not backed by real production, right? So it's not tied to real production. It's not going to inspire real production. It is simply new cash being added into the economy. Now, Jamaica does this by way of borrowing and by grants and special arrangements. For example, now that we have the recent pandemic issue and the government has been given billions of dollars in um, free money to push into our economy, that would just simply blow up the inflation in the economy and pushes prices out the door. And so that is the government messing with our purchasing power. Um, but for it, it's happy because it is getting money to spend that it didn't earn, that it did not cause to be generated by our local economy. And so it gets the benefit of the initial spending to look good, while it is ruining the local economy over time. So over time, life will get harder for everybody else because of these bad decisions. Yeah. Um, so we have to make sure that we eliminate the artificial inflation and and create the conditions now for local production. So for example, we have to eliminate the bad regulations. Like Jamaica has many bad regulations which are designed to stifle small businesses and protect big businesses. For example, there are banking regulations which creates a moat around existing big banks and prevents smaller indigenous local Jamaican financing arrangements to be created to compete with them, which would have created more access to capital for um, small businesses and would have given people more options and would have bring down the cost of banking and increase the amount of funds available in the productive sector. But the regulation that the government puts in place are designed to stifle those kind of innovation and enterprises and create a closed market for the big banks, which then makes them the billions of profits while stifling the production of small and medium enterprises, which stifles job creation, which then pushes our brightest markets out of Jamaica to go elsewhere to add that value to other countries. And in effect, keeps down the economy and devalues our dollar consistently and make us more and more of a consumption economy instead of a productive and export oriented economy. Yep. So Gavin Force saying, so without the central bank, what would the banking system look like? Very good question. So Jamaica would have a um, a Bank of Jamaica, which by the way currently is no longer um, owned and operated by the people of Jamaica. This government, following on the work of the previous government, has completely divested the Central Bank of Jamaica and made it an independent bank, which means the bank is now fully controlled by our foreign masters as opposed to by our government of Jamaica. So we don't even have a true central bank. We have a fake central bank. We have a central bank which is behind the scenes managed and manipulated by the private sector, but more like a cartel, yeah, that's in control of our banking system. They create all kind of fuzzy statements and wording to suggest to us that we now have an independent bank and it's working on behalf of the Jamaican people and just like they do in the U.S. You know, they have a Federal Reserve and it's supposed to be a federal central bank that's working for the interest of the American people. All a lie, 100% lie, right? These banks, this banking cartel, this central banking arrangement is working for the interest of the banking elites and for those who are a part of their cartel and group. It's not working for you. It's not working for the Jamaican. If we had a true central bank, this is what would happen, right? And this is what the UIC is going to create. Now listen carefully. We are going to ensure that Jamaica's banking system is such that the government does not borrow a single cent at interest from any private bank. Why should the government borrow money from any private bank when the money, the monetary system of the country is supposed to be owned and operated by the government on behalf of the people of Jamaica? So under the UIC system, we're going to have a monetary system and a banking system as a result, whereby the government of Jamaica does not have to borrow any money privately, never has to pay interest on any uh, money borrowed because it won't be borrowing from anybody. It will simply be creating the money that it needs to create into existence for the purpose of supporting the productivity gains in the economy. Now, don't be all immediately worried. What are we talking about printing? Right now, money is created out of thin air. The question is who is creating? So in the U.S. Federal Reserve System, that thin air money is created by the private banking cartel that runs the Federal Reserve. Okay, so they create it out of thin air, and then they lend it to the government, and the government pays interest on that back to them, making them a profit from money that they did not earn. So somebody's making money out of thin air. The question is, why do you want to give that power to the private banking cartel? Why not keep that power where it really belongs, which is with the people in their government? So the government itself is the one that creates the money out of thin air and introduces that money into the economy at a pace that is congruent with the productive capacity of the people. And as the money supply increases in tandem with the productive capacity of the people, you will have all the money you need in the economy. The trick is the government cannot do anything outlandish because then it would create a mismatch between supply and productivity and therefore creates artificial inflation. So the UIC puts in place an algorithm that uh, that manages all of that and makes it independent of politicians by virtue of the way we design the system so that the money supply never gets out of line with production. Therefore, the monitoring is not an inflation target of 1 or 2% as we currently have it now. Instead, it's an inflation target of zero. So it's a zero inflation target when it comes on to artificial inflation. You will have natural inflation, which is going to fluctuate based on market movements in any particular goods or service, which is not something for any government to worry about as a part of life. But no artificial inflation, and therefore the new banking system that the UIC will put in place, our banking system, is going to ensure that you have zero inflation, that the money supply is always what it needs to be, and that you do not have any manipulation of interest rate by any central bank or government and allow the market to drive both interest rate and exchange rate and therefore allow the market to signal to consumers and to investors properly so that they can make the appropriate asset allocation decisions that they need to make, which will then drive the economy forward with confidence because they know that the economy is not being manipulated by the government or any private banking cartel. So a long answer, but I hope that explains a lot to you. Will Jamaicans in diaspora be allowed to vote? It's highly desired. Thank you very much for that, Howard Foster. Absolutely. It is our plan to do two fundamental things for the diaspora, two very powerful things we need to do for the diaspora. One is to ensure that every single Jamaican, no matter where you are in the world, you can vote in every single election in Jamaica and do so remotely. So we're going to open up voter rights for the diaspora across the globe. We want Jamaica to not be 3 million people living here, but 7 million people, or whatever the number turns out to be, across the globe. We want to bring back, even if it's only virtual, all of the Jamaican talent to Jamaica. We want to make it very easy for Jamaicans living anywhere in the world to fully participate in the economy, the politics, and the social development of Jamaica. The UIC will be the most open government ever to the diaspora, having members of the diaspora being able to be easily appointed to positions in government um, uh, as subject matter experts to help us to rebuild or to build rather the new Jamaica that we want to build. So that's number one. We're going to create an open platform, an open space, an inclusive and welcoming space for the diaspora to be fully involved in life in Jamaica from wherever they are. Okay, so that's one. Two, we're going to roll out the red carpet to the diasporans to come back to Jamaica 100% duty free. This is critical. 100% duty free. So if you are living in Germany or Australia, the US, Canada, England, wherever you are, and you want to return to Jamaica, you'll get 100% duty-free return. You can bring back every single thing that you own, including your business, your tools, your equipment, your cat, your dog, everything 100% duty-free to Jamaica. Okay? This is key. Why are we doing this? We want you to know that we value you as a Jamaican, that we value the assets that you're going to bring back to this country, not just your tangible assets, but the intangible assets of your mind, your brain, your experience, your knowledge, your skills. And the quicker we can allow you to come back and settle, is the better it is for Jamaica. You're going to add value like no other. We have some brilliant minds out there, lawyers, doctors, engineers, entrepreneurs, um, even persons who may have just worked as a domestic helper overseas, for example. You have a different mindset now, a different set of skills, a different outlook on life, and you have acquired a little bit of assets as well, and you want to come home. We want to make it very, very easy for you to come home. We're going to roll out the red carpet, and we're going to also ensure that we give you all the information packaged and ready for you to hit the ground running. Make sure that you are properly secure in coming back. That you have proper security arrangements and everything to ease your return to Jamaica. We want you back here. And just in case you're thinking Jamaica can't hold you, Jamaica has enough space for all of us. Singapore is the size of St. Thomas, Singapore, and they have 5 million people, over 5 million people living there in the size of St. Thomas. And we have more than 14 St. Thomas here in Jamaica, which means Jamaica physically can hold more than 70 million persons, believe it or not. And so we have enough space for all in the diaspora to return to Jamaica. Of course, all will not, and all do not need to return. So what we're going to do is to make sure that you can participate from wherever you are. We're going to make it virtually easy for you to plug into Jamaica, invest in Jamaica, participate in Jamaica, be a part of the electoral process as best as possible. I hope I'm clear enough on that. The UIC has a good understanding of the economy compared to the two colonial parties. They could never fathom. That's very true, Gavin. Absolutely. Somebody else says we are spend Papa and see our money. Not sure what you mean. Diaspora, diaspora voting terrifies the two main parties. I think they would be a game changer. Yes, Pablo. They're afraid of the intellect of the diaspora. They purposefully try to dumb down and keep the Jamaican people weak. And that's how they control the economic space because they know that the people have been so weakened financially and even weakened intellectually uh, by the way they've governed this country. And so they're afraid of the diaspora. The UIC is not afraid because our approach is very transparent and open, and we're about real uh, dynamic transformation and changes, to the country. So we want that dynamism. We want the brilliance of the diaspora members to be fully involved in the new Jamaica. Um, Lion says, Mr. Patterson and the UIC will be the game changer for Jamaica. Absolutely. Sean Paul is asking about energy plan. Very good question, Sean Paul. One of our key objectives as a political movement is to make Jamaica water, food, and energy secure. This is very key for us to make Jamaica water, food, and energy secure. Now, for that to happen, uh, the government needs to set up the infrastructure for those things to work. So we're going to apply new technology, or not even so much new technology, which has not been applied in Jamaica, which are good at uh, a giving us a water harvesting infrastructure that runs across the entire country, that networks our homes to the best of our abilities, our farms, our communities, in a way to capture pools of water and interlink them in a filtering system and purification system that is joined like a electrical network around the country, that we can shift water to where it is needed most easily. That will include now employing a lot of alternative energy sources to push this, the pumps and so on, to push this around. So you might have heard of something called permaculture before. So I want to to design the ecosystem in Jamaica to make sure that we're living in line with the ecosystem, that we're merging the two so that they are codependent and co-supporting. So we're going to have the water harvesting technology uh, to get us our full water supply right around the country and into coming from the hills and between the farms and between the homes. Getting our homes up to speed to become a part of where possible, and not in all cases, but where possible, a part of the um, water capture system, and feeding that into key water reservoirs that are linked from house to house, community to community, and across the national grid, right? We're going to make everybody, wherever possible, a part of the water supply line so that Jamaica becomes fully water secure to the point where we can export water on a mass scale. Okay. Number two is to not just have water, but food security. So that means shifting Jamaica from the kind of agriculture we've been doing now, which is very painful, very bad, because it makes the ground very toxic, it makes the food cancerous, and it is really hurting us health wise and at the same time diminishing our yields. So we're going to go through a painfully slow but very important process of shifting to organic farming and then making that a part of Jamaica's competitive advantage globally so that we can start um, maximizing our production of organic foods across the length and breadth of Jamaica based on each geographical times, maximizing that using science and technology, proper plotting, proper land usage, uh, uh, greenhouse technology, vertical farming technology where necessary, and linking again that with our water system and then linking that with our energy systems. And when I say systems, I mean systems because we're looking at geothermal energy, biogas energy, solar energy, hydro energy, wind energy, wherever it makes sense and is scientifically sound, we're going to do a lot of energy capture and and then having that energy being shipped around the country in ways that are optimal, right? So that we can reduce our need for fossil fuel and gradually build our alternative energy usage to the level where we become uh, very independent or at least able to hold our own in a very, very strong way. So, with the question about energy, it's linked to food, it's linked to water, and it's a full ecosystem which will have tremendous economic benefits. You're talking about now jobs in the water harvesting industry, jobs in the food security industry, jobs in the alternative energy security industry, and the spin-off effects of all of these in other industries, which will bring us closer to full employment and drive up our average income per capita, and at the same time causing now our competency level to rise in these areas, which creates opportunities for also exporting our skills and talents as experts in the field of water harvesting, energy harvesting, and organic food security, making Jamaica the organic food capital of the world. Next question from Marsha. Now I see who's saying they want countries to be 70% uh, joked in every country. That's another story. The UIC is so against all of this foolishness. And we must, my friends, we must fight this government tooth and nail to stop them from injecting the vast majority of our population. The Jamaican people have spoken. They have made it very clear. 80%, over 80% of us made it clear that we do not want this substance into our body. And we claim that we're a democracy. We claim that we're a democracy where the majority rules. Well, the majority has been saying very clearly that they do not want this injection. And so the UIC stands with the people of Jamaica and stands for the people of Jamaica. And we will fight to the bitter end this government to stop them from injecting our children and injecting our teachers and injecting our nurses and injecting our employees by force, because that's what they're doing. They're using force to inject the Jamaican people when the people are saying no. When did we get to the stage where the government does not want to listen to what the people have to say? The people are making it loud and clear. Them no want the substance in their body. We don't want it. And so we need to fight back. So I want all of you to get ready. We're going to have to hit the streets again. I'm being very honest. Uh, if this government persists, and they are persisting, I just saw a letter that they sent out on the 29th of December, and school is opening on the 3rd or 4th, 5th, 6th, whatever, um, for face-to-face learning. All they're doing, is toying with the people. We will allow you face-to-face learning, but you have to make sure you take this injection. We will allow face-to-face if you take the injection. You won't be able to have face-to-face unless you take the injection. We have to stop this. We have to stop. This is unscientific. We know that our children are in the lowest risk category. That's a fact. But we also know that this injection is neither safe nor effective. Every single day, we see that it's neither safe nor effective. We see that a person who takes this injection can still contract the disease and can still transmit the disease, and in fact is a major carrier of variants now. So we need to stop this. We have a government that's deaf and dumb on the matter. They're just committed to pushing and forcing this on the Jamaican people. The more we say no, is the more they try to find a different way. They spend every waking minute of every day trying to find a way to force this on us, even though we have said clearly, no, we don't want it. They don't understand that no means no. This is rape. This is rape. This is rape. They're trying to rape the Jamaican people. They have raped us economically for 77 years. And here they are trying to rape us again. And by the way, in case you don't get it, this injection thing is an economic rape. Once they get 70, 80, 90% of our people hooked on this drug, the government will be liable or will be required or will be, or even us, every citizen who becomes an addict, right? An addict on this drug will have to buy this drug forever to stay alive, because our immune system will be compromised, will no longer be able to deal with itself, and as a result of that, becomes dependent on this substance. So look at the economic windfall for the colonial masters. They will have a continuous supply of payments, a continuous supply of payments from Jamaica for the rest of our lives. So this is a serious, this is a serious economic problem we're talking about here, because Jamaica is now going to be on the hook to buy this drug for 2, 3 million people every single year, 2 doses or more a year, because you have to get two boosters, because it wanes after 6 months, right? So every 6 months, every single Jamaican needs to get a booster shot. And who's going to pay for that? We're going to pay one way or the other because nothing is free. Even if they're giving it us for free now, nothing is free. You pay for it one way or another. One way you may pay for it if you don't realize it. You might pay for it with your life. You might pay for it with the quality of your life. You might pay for it in having to find money to pay for huge hospital bills. So, my friends, this is war, and our government is at war with us. There's a war going on in the world, and our government has sided with the enemy against us, the people of Jamaica. Now, people always ask me, so what then? What would the UIC do? How would the UIC deal with this pandemic? Well, we have three words for that: be objective, be transparent, and be inclusive. If this government had applied those three simple words, we would have life a lot easier. So, first of all, uh, the government should not jump on any bandwagon like this government has. It should have focused on being very objective about the the um, the problem. So remain open and objective about it. Don't take any side. Don't become a drug pusher for any pharmaceutical company. Focus on being objective, saying, okay, Jamaican people, here's what we know right now. Here are the facts, and here are the assumptions, and here are the gray areas that we're not sure about. That's number one. So be objective. That's also being transparent, giving all the information, making it available. So what the UIC would have done, and which we told the Prime Minister to do at the very beginning, is to call together a council, a public emergency council, which must include the leaders of all registered political parties and include civil society group leaders and of course those from the medical, scientific, um, justice, uh, and all of that, right? People from those different areas. Bring them together in the same room on the same council, a public emergency council. This is a public emergency. Behave like we're at war, like you're creating a war council. When you're going to have a war council, you don't want it to be partisan or political. So don't behave like this is a political matter, which is what this government did. They made this issue a political matter as opposed to a public emergency where you want the entire Jamaican population engaged through their representatives, the civil society groups, the political parties, the scientific community, and so on. Then you make sure that you lead this council in an objective way, looking at the picture objectively and a transparent way, making sure that all the persons have all the information that's available. So you don't hold back anything. You make it public. So it's public and it's also fully given to the those at the table. Uh, you make it inclusive because you've now included all of the persons. And then you want to undergird this by a very important philosophy. And the philosophy must go something like this. Whatever we do, we are going to protect and preserve the individual rights and freedom of the Jamaican people because that is our fundamental responsibility as a government. But that's what distinguishes the UIC from any of the other two parties, by the way. They do not respect your individual sovereignty. They don't believe that you have a right to your life, to your liberty, or your property, including your body. They think that somehow um, you are less than and they are greater than and have the right to determine what must be done with your body, what must be done with your income, and so on. They feel that they are gods over you. The UIC is opposed to that. But having this kind of public emergency council now would have been the basis of making clear-cut decisions that are objective and based on transparency and inclusivity. We would end up with a situation where would have early treatment. So people wouldn't have been sent home to die. They would have been given um, scientifically sound information as to how they can self-medicate. You know, they would understand what the disease is and how they can medicate. Like when I got the virus, how I medicated. You know, I knew how to manage and build my immune system. I knew how to use steaming to get rid of the mucus buildup. I understood the importance of rest. I knew how to integrate physical exercise into the regime, and using all of that, how to nurse myself back to health very, very quickly without having any serious impact from the disease. But as you know, the government was not inclined to empower the Jamaican people like that. They wanted us to suffer. And as a result of suffering and having statistics and being able to scare us with statistics, that people are dying and suffering, and the only recourse is to take this drug. That's their goal. Now, an objective, transparent, and inclusive process would not have done that. It would have focused on public education and providing public support that helps people to make good decisions in the best interest of themselves and their families without government taking draconian measures, which resulted in locking down and ostracizing, and ridiculing, and then forcing and tricking and bribing, all of that kind of ugly stuff that we need to stop. We need to get away from that. So a UIC approach to governance is very, very different. We believe in respecting you as an individual and supporting you in making good and sound decisions for yourself, including your economy, including your finances, your health, your children, your housing, your education. We want you to be in the driver's seat of your life, not the government, not the prime minister. Um, the government must be there as a support to you, not as a master over you. That's the difference with the UIC and the other political parties. So Tanya is saying, yeah, we have that capacity. I am talking about virus research. Um, if we're not doing scientific research, how will we get the data to give advice? Very good question. And that is what we should be doing, scientific research. In fact, how many years? Why is it after 77 years we do not have all of our herbs and stuff properly categorized and available so that our people know how to care for themselves using our own herbs and our own local remedies as opposed to simply importing pharmaceuticals? The reason we don't have these things, Tijano, I hope I get your name right, Tijano Taylor. The reason we don't have these things is because we don't have good governance. We don't have a government which is here to empower the people of Jamaica. We have a government which is here to extract the wealth of the people. Yeah. So it is not, um, Tijano is saying it is not the underestimating the ability of the people. It is talking about the realities of the current situation. Yeah, the reality of the current situation is that we do not know what we need to know because we can't trust our government. That's the reality of the situation. The reality of the situation is that we have a government that we cannot trust. And so we can't now depend on our government to guide us effectively because we can't trust them. And the UIC will improve this by giving Jamaica a government that you can trust. The UIC is the change that you can trust. The UIC is going to give Jamaica good governance. The UIC is going to give Jamaica a system of governance, which is the first time in the history of Jamaica, is designed to protect and promote the interest of every single citizen, as opposed to the interest of the few. Yeah. All right. Devon is saying Jamaica can do anything that the US and Canada can do. However, the people need the freedom to do it. Excellent point, Devon. And that's what we need to do. The UIC has to give the Jamaican people the freedom, the space, the security to be able to do what they need to do in the grand scheme of things. So thank you very much for that. All right. So we are now at the 1 hour and 39 minute mark. And I'm going to thank you all so very much for participating. I think by now you have gotten a much deeper insight into the UIC and how we plan to uh, really improve Jamaica for the benefit of all Jamaicans. So thank you very much for being here tonight. I want to wish you the absolute best for 2022. I want you to encourage your family, your friends to really come out and help to elect the UIC. We must bring about a new Jamaica. We must create a real new Jamaica. Um, and for us to do that, we need your help. Um, Aaron Robinson is asking when I'm coming to New York. I have no idea, but you can always arrange something by Zoom, and I can chat with a group if you have any. Um, yeah, yeah. So, and Malcolm X is saying there are great and innovative minds in Jamaica. The system is the problem. Why we have not produced anything of substance. That's so correct, Malcolm X. So, Dorrit Smith, Malcolm X, Aaron Robinson, JMH, Evan Thompson, all of you on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. Thank you all so much for joining us tonight. All the best for 2022. Happy New Year when it gets here, and let us keep up the struggle, keep up the fight for real new Jamaica. Thanks again. Have a good night until we